One of the biggest updates for Atmos text to date is a return of pipe layering, but now it actually looks proper, as in you're not just stacking 30 pipes literally in the same tile. Each tile can now support 3 pipes, so here's a visualization. So this is 3 vertical or horizontal pipes. Here's a mix of 3 horizontal and vertical pipes with like 1 pipe coming in and going over, and then 3 going through. There's also a object you can craft now called a pipe manifold, which allows you to kind of connect like 2 or 3 segments into one segment. So for example, when you go to construct, you'll have these different blue dots to click on. So like I can have 3 pipes connect into this and outshoot with 1. It also seems like you have to build them one at a time on the same tiles. In the PR, it shows being able to build multiple ghosted objects in the same place, but I'm just not seemingly able to do that even with like the manifold. I'm not entirely sure why that is. Either way though, you can use a manifold like this to connect all of the pipes together into one outlet. So that is the gist of this. Obviously it's up to the Atmos tech to make utilization of this, but you essentially can do 3 times more per tile with these pipes. So the sky is really the limit with this. There's going to be some crazy tritium and freeze-on setups with this, and probably some TEG setups as well. One of the most highly requested features from Space Station 13, and one of the greatest features of Space Station 13, is now in Space Station 14. Or let's say I want hello to be highlighted for whatever reason. Now, anytime somebody says hello, there will be a color above your head. So if you see the text physically, it'll say that, and in the chat, it'll say it physically. This setting can be adjusted in the options, and under accessibility, you can change the color to be whatever you want. So you can make it pop out more if you have issues with certain colors. So if I type in the word the, and I say the, just for example, it'll highlight my name because it's part of the name and the word I have actually said there. But say I put an at in front of it. Now if I type in the word the, it will no longer show the whole name. Now let's get rid of the at and do the so now that is my first 2 names, or the first 2 words of my name. And just one more time, for an example, do an at, repeat that. Now it no longer says I am saying that. There's been a big change to the particle accelerator system. For example, all I have is the computer here, and normally you'd have to press E and scan the parts on it to see what's happening. And if you shift click any of the parts, it'll actually tell you where things need to go. It basically displays like this blueprint outline, and you can even shift click it to get the actual names of the parts. This is awesome for just seeing if you have something in the wrong place and you're just like newer to the game, or just like, especially for the end caps, like the starboard fore and port, that can get really confusing, especially when you're doing things not in normal north-south orientation. Either way, this is also going to pave the way for other multi-part machines whenever those come, if they come. Looks really good, and it's just another quality of life feature that is phenomenal. Gas canisters have been buffed moderately. Before, they would only have about enough gas in them to fill about 18 tiles. Now they can fill up to about 26, so basically they just have a larger internal storage. Without modifications to them, like using a volumetric pump, these are still worse than the air gas grenades, but you could use a volumetric pump and make these better. Obviously, the gas grenades are going to be better for emergencies, but now canisters serve as a better emergency supply of air for people who don't have access to those grenades, or again, you can make these better than normal gas grenades with some effort. You can now order air grenade crates for $2,500. Inside of these are just 3 air grenades. These are really useful tools. I'd be surprised if people actually go out of their way to buy this, but I guess with different department economies, you're competing with like materials versus emergency air supply. Either way though, you can now acquire these outside of the round start variants. Directional plasma reinforced windows and uranium reinforced windows are now actually tankier than their normal reinforced counterparts, so they've essentially been buffed / fixed, however you want to look at it. They're more durable. And while I'm here, directional uranium windows and uranium windows in general have been buffed over their plasma windows, so they are even tankier. There are new emergency shuttle emergency lockers, say emergency 3 times fast. Inside of this, there are 3 air grenades, a hollow fan projector, inflatable wall box, and 3 metal foam grenades. This can allow for quick seals of the emergency shuttle, and these will be found on all emergency shuttles, either in the near future. I think a few of them already have it. By the way, this is a solution for the very, very common spacings of these evac shuttles. The TEG has been nerfed to no longer support 1 loop setups as simply, so this nerfs things like the guard TEG, which is like the small TEG that you probably have seen at some point in time. So now you really need to have a proper cold loop that is separate from the hot loop, so you need a 2 loop system. Some stations have this set up pretty decently by default. Otherwise, you're probably going to see people figure out the new best way within 5 minutes. And also, when you examine the TEG now, you'll see the capable supply as well as what it's currently supplying. So you can adjust your gas inputs, outputs, whatever, in order to more properly meet the station's requirements and not waste gas and be more efficient. All machine parts have been consolidated down into the modular machine part, so that means like capacitors, matter manipulators, and matter bins are now just this modular machine part. So this simplifies crafting without changing anything else. The material cost is going to be the same, but instead of 3 separate objects, there's now just one object to do those things. Maybe some point in the future there might be machine upgrading again, but unlikely because there's already upgraded variants in machines. So this is the simplification and the full removal of a system that was already mostly removed anyway. There is now a Sentry turret control panel. This is for like the Sentry turret that will be found in AI cores and possibly armories. Here you can see the devices linked up. Obviously, if there's no devices linked up, there's none there. You can see if the turrets are active, set to stun or lethal, and you can see who they are authorized or who is authorized to not be shot by these turrets versus who is. So this is going to, I mean, the UI looks beautiful. I really like this older style design. It reminds me of like a Fallout terminal. Anyways, enough nerding on. It's a great UI and is a proper implementation for the turret, so you can see who is allowed in. It's not just guesswork, and it just, again, looks great. There is now a Bananium rock anomaly, and as you can guess, this thing spawns Bananium ore and Bananium crabs, and I'm just going to super crit it so you can see that in action. The sprite is, I mean, it looks like a normal rock anomaly, but it's yellow, so it's pretty obvious it's a Bananium. Just other yellow rocks. You'll spawn these ore crabs that are slippery. They seemingly don't attack you right away. I think it's just like normal crabs. You have to hit them, but it will spawn Bananium and yellow crystals. So there's application to get those and Bananium on the station now rather than relying on miners. Either way, more variety for anomalies is always good. You can now purchase a bulk Cleannades grenade from Cargo. Inside there are 2 boxes of Cleannades, which each box has 4 Cleannades, so you can buy a total of 8 from Cargo at a time. The spray nozzle will now let you actually suck up liquid directly, so you can just left click on puddles and it will completely evaporate the puddle. So there's a lot of applications here. It's good for flamethrowers if there ends up being spilled liquids on the ground. And of course, it's still great for janitors to be able to suck up stuff directly. Syndicate agents no longer will have to keep other traitors alive. So that objective would sometimes be impossible to complete because you could literally late join and that person would be dead. Sometimes you would win by doing absolutely nothing. And it was also just, it kind of let you know who was a syndicate agent immediately. And either way, it was an objective that didn't lead to a whole lot of good gameplay overall. Sometimes it would, like I've seen perma breaks of people breaking their keep alive target out of perma, but either way, I think a lot of people just didn't even try doing it, or it was already impossible. Like me, I've definitely experienced rounds where I joined and 2 or 1 of my targets were dead. What was I supposed to do? The Chameleon kit now features a Chameleon Controller implant. When you inject yourself with this, you'll get an action that will pop up the ability to look like any single job, including non-normally obtainable jobs like a wizard, and swap to that immediately. So you can very, very quickly blend back in, but either way, being able to instantly look like a job with all of your stuff on, like every slot, is really, really nice for blending in instantly. This is a massive buff to the Chameleon clothes. And speaking of the Chameleon clothes, they got too strong with this for sure, and they thought about that. So now if you get EMP'd, your clothes will start glitching out. This is something like from 13. So if you are ever involved with EMP, you'll have this awesome looking animation of swapping through like every clothing item through the game. It makes you very obvious something's wrong, but it again just looks awesome. Diona now have the ability to root themselves. So normally if you stepped on something like lube, you'd slip, but if you root yourself, you will actually have the ability to move through liquids, but you will slowly absorb them. So if I were to step on this lube and check my internal solution, you basically suck this stuff up directly. There is good implications here where if you step on something healing, it would actually heal you, but if you step on something poisonous like welding fuel, it will poison you. And at the same time, Lube has finally started meeting its demise. Lube will now actually evaporate. It's not instantaneous or anything, but Lube in 13 evaporated. I'm really surprised it took this long for it to start evaporating. It was very, very good, and especially in something like Nuki's where it made certain fights basically unwinnable just by default. And now the living Diona mops can help that evaporation process by sucking it up. Seismic charges escape the ability to detonate instantly when linked to a timer or a trigger, so now they will just set off their default timer when you use a remote signal, so no longer can you use them to make instant detonating explosives. Most food crates have had their prices increased. This also includes things like the pizza delivery. The bulk soft drinks crate has also been removed, but there's still the soft drinks crate itself. And due to the fact that all of these have gotten more expensive, it's a little bit less viable to just like kind of feed yourselves as cargo, especially getting like the medicine through like Arnold's as a pizza. Also, you can no longer get the random pizza delivery. So if you're ever going to get pizza, you're going to have to pay for it, or of course have the chef cook it. And speaking of food nutrient, more complicated recipes now actually have better nutritional value. It's not true across the board. Like banana bread's technically a more complicated recipe than bread, but they both provide the same amount of nutrients. But more complex recipes that would sometimes lose like 20, 30 nutrient will now have a more balanced load for this. So making more complex meals will actually be something you take like two or more bites out of. Some things would be like you finish a soup in like one sip, and that would definitely make it so people would avoid certain recipes because the amount of effort it took just wasn't worth it for even roleplay purposes. Would be gone instantly. Either way, good to see some changes in that regard, considering buying food is now harder. And that's all I got to cover for this update cycle. Really awesome engineering changes across the board. The pipe stacking is phenomenal. The chameleon close I think looks awesome. So please give our maintainers and contributors a big thank you, and of course, thank you for watching.